Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarini. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So welcome back to the Nectar of Instruction Bhakti Shastri course. Yesterday we were discussing text 6. We began with the discussion on text 6, which is a very important verse which speaks about how when a Madhyam Adhikari associates with a Mahabhagavat, because in the previous verse it was mentioned that Nindadi Shunya Hridayam Ipsita Sangha Labhya, that one should desire, hanker to have that association of a Mahabhagavat whose heart is pure, free from criticism. So such a Mahabhagavat association when a Madhyam Adhikari is having, he should be careful not to see such a Mahabhagavat from a material vision. And this is the verse, text 6, which is speaking about it. Yesterday we went through the text and the translation. Then we saw Bhaktivinoda Thakur's explanation of what this verse deals with. Aprakrita Vaishnave, Prakrit Drishti Nished. A Vaishnava who is Aprakrit means completely transcendental. His body is completely pure. And we mentioned that only at the stage of bhava, the body fully gets spiritualized. Prakrita Drishti Nished. One is forbidden to see him from a materialistic vision, Nished. So this is the further internal vision and development where the, just like if you go to an ophthalmologist and you have maybe myopic vision, and when you go to the ophthalmologist, he tests your eyes, and then he starts fitting in a lens to see whether that lens is fitting you properly. So at that time, when he's trying to test, then he adjusts his the number of the lens, seeing whether it fits you properly. And then at last, when you say, yes, this is proper fit, then what he does, then he sets it. And then you have a right vision to see with your lens. So similarly, what is the right vision by which we should see a pure devotee? And what are the other myopic visions or the material visions by which we should not see a pure devotee? Thereby, we don't commit Vaishnava Prad. So that is what is being discussed in text 6. So yesterday, we started discussing the purport. There are 2 themes: glories of Shuddha Bhakti, paragraphs 1 to 2, 6, warning against Vaishnava criticism. So we discussed, as far as I remember, up till paragraph 1 and 2, because there are a lot of questions on Shuddha Bhakti and other aspects. So we only discussed up till paragraph 1 and 2. So now we will discuss paragraph 3 onwards. So the whole background is set that a pure devotee is practicing Shuddha Bhakti, the soul's activity. He is transcendently engaged in loving service of the Lord. He is practicing Shuddha Bhakti in the liberated stage. And Prabhupada is quoting this, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate Sagunan Samitetan. He has transcended the modes. And then he goes on to define what is pure devotion. We discussed yesterday the difference between Avyabicharini Bhakti and Ahetuki Bhakti. There is a subtle difference, but Prabhupada uses it here synonymously. There is Akinchana Bhakti. Akinchana Bhakti is also a Ahetuki Bhakti. So there is subtle difference, but Prabhupada uses here synonymously. And then such a Vaishnava who is practicing devotion should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. And only one who is a devotee can recognize another devotee. There are Kanisht, Madhyam and Uttam, and a Kanisht cannot distinguish between a devotee and non-devotee. Even a Uttam Adhikari also cannot distinguish between a devotee and a non-devotee in one sense. But there is a hell and heaven difference between the two. It's only a Madhyam Adhikari who can make this distinction between the devotee, the non-devotee, the innocent and the envious, and accordingly reciprocate. So such a Madhyam Adhikari should now improve his vision, his internal vision he should develop. Vision is a matter of knowledge, spiritual knowledge. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmani Gavihastini Sunicheva Sapakecha Pandita Samadarshana. 5.18 in the Bhagavad Gita. Vidya, Vinaya. Vidya means transcendental knowledge. Vinaya means humility, gentleness. Sampanna. Sampatti means, acquiring wealth. But real wealth is spiritual wealth. Then he can see everyone. Sunicheva, Sopakecha, Pandita, Samadarshana. He sees even a dog eater and a Brahmana, an elephant, a cow, with all equal vision, because he sees spiritual equality, that all are spirit souls, except they are in different bodies made of the three modes. So only he can see, and this vision has to be developed. And this vision develops with acquiring knowledge. With knowledge we see. A radiologist does his 2 years or 3 years post-graduation after his MBBS, and then he can read an X-ray report. So we can also see X-ray on the screen, but we can't read it because our eyes are not trained in that knowledge. So here that knowledge, what a Madhyam Adhikari should have, not to see with a material vision, that knowledge is given now. So that will begin now from paragraphs 3 to 9. So here is the next theme now, 6 warning against Vaishnava criticism, paragraph 3 to 9. What are the 6 warnings now? Now, seeing the bodily defects is paragraph 3, abominable activities, paragraph 3, from material considerations of caste and hereditary, Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, foreigner Goswamis, paragraph 4, discriminating on material point of view on the basis of society, caste and greed, paragraph 5, being envious of a devotee and misbehaving with him, paragraph 6. And then effects of this, especially the last one, being envious. What is the effect? It is Vaishnava Aparadha. The effects are spoken in the next paragraphs, 7. And then criticizing a empowered Vaishnava. That is explained in paragraph 8. And considering an empowered Vaishnava an object of disciplinary action or trying to give advice or correct him. This is paragraph 9. So these are the 6 different themes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 different themes here of how from materialistic vision we can see a pure devotee and commit aparadha. So these are, some are based on Swabhava, some are based on Vapu. Dushte Swabhava Janita Vapushcha, as it is mentioned. So there is one question. Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. As we have read here, a Kanishtadhikari, he cannot distinguish, and a Uttamadhikari also cannot distinguish, even though there is a difference between the two. And we should, I understand we should learn how not to distinguish, but why are we learning how exactly to distinguish and how to respect? Why not treat everybody the same?
Okay. The Kanishtadhikari's ability not to distinguish is actually in deep ignorance. The Madhyamadhikari not able to distinguish is not in ignorance, it is in pure transcendence in one sense. So why Madhyamadhikari cannot distinguish is because he has spiritual vision. He sees everything as Brahman. Sarvam idam khalam Brahman. Brahma. He sees everything as Brahman. So because he is able to see Krishna everywhere, Stavar deki, Jangam deki, na deki tara murti, sarvatra hoy ishtadeva spurti. It is mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Stavar. Stavar means that which is not moving. Jangam. Jangam means that which is moving. Na deki tara murti. He doesn't see that. Sarvatra hoy ishtadeva spurti. Everything, whatever he sees Krishna there. This is the height of madness in one sense. So somebody who has attained this height of madness is not of this material world. He's completely situated in the transcendental world. So once a very senior devotee was giving a lecture and one of the students came, how will I understand whether I'm Krishna conscious? So he asked the senior devotee. So the senior devotee told him, when you're going on this road, what do you see? Oh, there are trees. Oh, there are trees. Huh? Okay, you're not Krishna conscious. Don't worry. Practice Krishna consciousness. So, for the gopis, when they see the trees, they don't see them as trees. You know? So, their level of consciousness is like that. So, a Mahabhagavat's vision is that he is able to, because of his Prema Anjana, he is able to see Krishna actually in this world. He is able to see Shyam Sundar. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he used to go to take darshan of Jagannath, he used to not see Jagannath, he used to see Shyam Sundar Krishna in that. So that is the vision. Now here the Uttamadhikari's vision is such that he sees that all living beings are under the shelter of the Lord. So in that sense, all living beings are Vaishnavas. In that sense he sees. So that's why he doesn't feel the need to preach. But Krishna has a mission, because only a Madhyamadhikari can discriminate and bestow mercy. So Krishna also cannot, bestow mercy directly to the jivas. Because if he has to bestow mercy, then he has to bestow mercy to every jiva in this universe. But we see that it is not so. Only some take to bhakti and some don't take to bhakti. So then Krishna will be held what? That he is doing partiality. Yes? Even a Uttamadhikari also cannot distinguish. But only a Madhyama can distinguish. So that's why Krishna sometimes breaks the vision of the Uttamadhikari so that he can come down to the platform of the Madhyam and actually act as an instrument of Krishna in bestowing the mercy to the jivas. So in that sense, we have to see what it really means that Uttamadhikari also cannot distinguish between a devotee and a non-devotee. It is a matter of vision, but when actually mercy has to be bestowed, there has to be discrimination. And Krishna's mercy follows the Madhyamadhikari behind him. And the Madhyamadhikari is fully independent. He can bestow mercy whomever he wants. And Krishna is completely he is completely under the control of that devotee. Wherever that devotee wants to sell him, Krishna is there because Krishna is controlled by his devotee. So that's how Krishna bestows his mercy, or Bhakti Devi manifests in the heart of the conditioned soul. So this is how it happens. Now also, as I was explaining, both the Kanishta and the Mahabhagavat, it's like a difference between Tamagun and Satugun. They look very similar, but there is a lot of difference between the two. Similar is like that here. For a Kanishta, if he in a day once remembers Krishna, he thinks he's a very great devotee. And a Mahabhagavat, if he forgets for one moment Krishna, he considers himself as the most fallen. So there is a lot of difference in the level of consciousness. So that is the point. That is how we have to understand. Okay. So now let us take paragraph 3, criticizing because of bodily defects, and then abominable activities by a devotee. So this is because of his conditioned nature, because of his swabhava. And this is the external bodily defects. So these two are dealt in paragraph 3. No one should criticize the bodily defects of a pure devotee. If there are such defects, they should be overlooked. What should be taken into account is the spiritual master's main business, which is devotional service, pure service to the Supreme Lord. Now, here, what all are the bodily defects? I think Prabhupada has mentioned. Overlook a devotee is having a body born in a low family. Oh, he's coming from a Shudra background, or he's coming from a Mlecha background. So if you see something from his previous background, that is also considered as an aparadh. Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions 3 types of faults we see in Vaishnavas. One, he says, is previous to he taking up to spiritual life. Oh, previous life of his? He was a thief. He was a robber before, practicing spiritual life. So if you speak about his previous life before taking to Krishna consciousness, then you commit Vaishnava aparadh. Then, while he is practicing spiritual life, the little traces of sin which are left, and with the practice of bhakti, they will be completely destroyed. You find fault with his nature, or if he has committed any sin accidentally, and you find fault and speak about it. Sometimes even very great devotees, because of daiva, by providence, they might commit something wrong or some mistake. And what has happened by daiva, then what you do? You criticize even them. So these all 3, because of his previous life means previous to taking Krishna consciousness, while practicing Krishna consciousness, when all the papa and punya is destroyed, that time you speak about it, about his faults, about his nature, and then something because of daiva, some mistake or something wrong he does, and then you speak about that. This can happen even to very, very advanced devotees, especially the daiva. Usually the first one also sometimes some devotees have a tendency to speak about it. So all these 3 categories we should be careful. So this is the first thing. This is gross vision. Drishte swabhava janita vapushya. Drishte means what? Drishti. Seeing by ordinary vision. So in this vision, there are 2 types of vision, I say. One is the gross vision, another is the subtle vision. So with the gross vision, we see gross defects. Like the gross body is there. He's born from this kind of a body, African Vaishnava or American Vaishnava. Once Srila Prabhupada was preaching in Africa, Prabhupada's disciples first had gone there, and Prabhupada was invited to come to Africa. Prabhupada observed wherever he was, programs were arranged for him, they were all in Indian pious families. So Prabhupada asked Brahmanand, where are the locals here? Africans. I want to preach to the locals. And then Brahmanand's face was, his demeanor, Prabhupada couldn't understand. Prabhupada, they are Africans. Read, what is the difference? They are black skin, you are white skin. Prabhupada said. So discriminating based on the bodily platform. And when Prabhupada heavily chastised Brahmanand, then the local Africans, Prabhupada started preaching in one program at least. When Prabhupada came down to give a class, one of the African had worn Prabhupada's saffron robes. But Prabhupada, how he dealt with the Africans. Oh, you Africans are also black? And our Krishna, he's also black. So something to relate to them, and that's how he preached. And the Africans took up Krishna consciousness. So trying to discriminate on the bodily platform or a body born from the low family, that is kind of Vaishnava aparadha, bad complexion. So this, especially the whole Afro-American, what is it movement called? Apartheid movement. Apartheid movement in America. So Bhakti Tirth Maharaj, when he joined the movement, he also faced this difficulty with other God brothers. And Bhakti Tirth Maharaj came once to Prabhupada and spoke about it. And Prabhupada said, if they are discriminating on the bodily platform, then what is the point? You don't realize our philosophy. Our philosophy is we are not the body, we are the spirit soul. So Bhakti Tirth Maharaj was very touched, and he was able to, that tension which was there, he was able to himself transcend that bodily consciousness. So especially in ISKCON, one of the problems which we face, because our organization is very big organization, and there are many spiritual masters who are initiated. So many times devotees discriminate, oh, you're this spiritual master's disciple, you're this spiritual master disciple. So based on which spiritual master's disciple you are, they will treat you like that. So this is completely on the bodily concept of life, trying to discriminate like this. So this is also a kind of Vaishnava aparadha, if you see. A deformed body. Who had a deformed body? If you remember, in one of the great rishis had a deformed body, is Ashtavakra. So he had committed an offense. So when he went to the king's palace, he was bent in 8 different places, and his walking was very, very weird, and all the ministers laughed. So Ashtavakra smiled and said, I did not know that you have a council consisting of fools. They don't realize that we are not this body, he said. A diseased body or an infirm body. So these are the different types of, bodily defects we can look into. So this we should be very, very careful about it. So I have put here, in low family, bad complexion, deformed, diseased body. Such imperfection may be prominent in the body of a pure devotee, but despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. The example is of that Ganga. So seeing Vaishnavas from materialistic vision is prohibited. So this is the first, a gross vision, where we see the gross bodily defects. So this is the first one. Let us go to the other one, but there is one question. Poonam Mataji, you have a question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji, I was about to ask about the aparadha which you were telling, the 3 aparadhas. So I wanted, one more time to repeat, if you can repeat it.
The aparadhas which we see in the devotees.
Mm-hmm.
One is, before he taking up to spiritual life, you speak about his previous life. Oh, that person, before he took up to spiritual life, he was a drunkard, or he was having these bad habits. So that if you speak about his previous life, that is aparad. Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions. Second, while he is practicing spiritual life, all his sins are getting destroyed by practice of bhakti. It is like somebody who is just below a shower. He's very dirty, muddy, and he's under the shower. He's taking the bath. While he's taking the bath, he's getting washed of the mud. You still point out, oh, you have so much mud on your body. He's below the shower. So very soon he will get cleansed. So similarly, he has taken up to spiritual life. He will get purified. But while he's getting purified, you find out faults with him in his nature or in his habits. And the third one is because of daiva or providence. Some advanced devotee also might commit some mistake and you point out fault, which has come by providence or daiva. So all these three, we should not find faults with Vaishnavas. So that is the point which Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making.
Prabhuji, what is the meaning of daiva?
Daiva means providence. Daiva means by providence. Krishna sometimes can put his pure devotees also in some trouble, and we don't know the plan of Krishna. So we might, find fault. Like many here are from India, you must be knowing about the 12 alvars. In the Sri Sampradaya, the 12 alvars are very famous. Now, one of the alvars, actually, he was a very pure devotee. Alvars are the eternal liberated devotees of the Lord from the spiritual world, from the Vaikuntha, in fact. Some are incarnation of Shankar, Chakra, Gada, And all these alvars, their birth was also not ordinary. Many were born on lotuses. They did not have normal birth also. So these were the great alvars. And among them, one of the alvars' daughter was, her name is Andal. Andal was one alvar. She was only one alvar, Peri alvar's daughter, that is Andal. She was having gopi bhav towards Krishna. She was the only alvar who was having this mood of Raj Bhakti. So one of the alvars, in fact, he was doing menial service of making garlands to Rangnath, and he was sitting in the cottage and doing the garlands. And it suddenly started raining, and some ladies were passing by, so they stopped below a tree just so that the rain subsides. And one of the ladies was a very beautiful Devdasi, very beautiful, she was actually a prostitute. So the other lady friend said, what is the point of your beauty? You cannot attract this man. So she took it as a challenge, and you see what I will do to him. So she kept observing this alvar who was, making flowers for the Lord, Rangnath. And one day again, when it was raining, she came running and said, please give me shelter, please give me shelter. So this alvar was such a pure devotee, he did not know a difference between a male and a female also. And he gave shelter to come in his house. And suddenly, this alvar, this lady attracted him, and this alvar was corrupted, in fact. And after having union with this alvar, this lady immediately left him and went. This alvar went mad and he started running behind this lady. So she went to her house and she locked the door. And all day this alvar was knocking the door. Please open the door. Please open the door. And now he had left Rangnath's service and he was lying there in the front of this prostitute's house. Now, Rangnath and Ranganaika go on their Utsav Murtis. They go every day. So then Lakshmiji asked, see what has happened to your devotee? Why are you not showing mercy and compassion? See what I will do, Rangnath said. They were both discussing while going on the Utsav Murti. So what the Lord did that day is, he sent he himself came, in fact, with all plate of jewelry, gold, and knocked the door of this lady, prostitute. And this time the prostitute opened the door and she said, this Alvar has given you all these presents, all these gold items. So she was very much happy. And then, please come, please sit, please have something. No, 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 I have to go back to my service. And this boy ran away. It was actually Narayan. And then later on, this Alvar again knocked the door as he used to do every day. And this time the lady opened the door, welcomed him. Now this Alvar was not able to understand why is she behaving like this now. And then by the same time, the pujaris in the temple came to know that the Lord's jewelries are stolen. And somebody said, maybe this Alvar has done something. So all the pujaris came to this house of the prostitute and they saw the Alvar, the prostitute, and these are Ranganath's jewelry. And the prostitute said, this Alvar gave me. So they arrested this Alvar and he was behind the bars. So then the pujari, then Ranganath came in the pujari's dream and told that it was I who stole this. So when this Alvar who was in the prison, was released because the Brahmanas came and told, oh, please forgive us. It was Narayan only who had stolen this jewelry and he played a trick. What to do? So this Alvar was lamenting, what a misfortune I have that this lady prostitute had the darshan of Narayan and I did not have darshan. So actually, sometimes the Lord can put his devotees in trouble and he wants to see that his devotees feel separation from the Lord. So sometimes by Daiva, this is a very extreme example because it's a true example which is there recorded in the 12 Arva story. So sometimes by Daiva, we don't know. Sometimes very elevated devotees also might be going through something. And we might, with our tiny brains, start speculating, oh, this must be the reason, that must be, oh, he's suffering because of his previous sin. So all these kind of mental speculations we might do and commit Vaishnava aparadha. Best is, we should never try to speculate and try to understand until that devotee reveals to us what exactly he's going through. So we don't have that relationship with that devotee, neither he has revealed to us, and we might speculate so many things. And I've come across many such cases. So one very senior devotee, very, very senior devotee who was a temple president, and when he was returning from a foreign trip coming back to the center, he met with an accident. And they were speculating, the temple authorities and some other brahmacharis, oh, maybe because he's committed some bad karma. So because of that, he's getting this reaction, that he got this reaction. So this kind of speculations we might do, but we don't know what is Krishna's plan. We absolutely don't have idea. So Daiva means something which has come by providence, some incident, some mistake, something happens. So that we should, understand it is by Daiva, and that is why we should not find fault. Now, again, a practical example to give for this is the story of Maharaj Bharat. Now, many, while explaining this pastime, tell that Maharaj Bharat fell down from the Bhava stage. That means the whole Bhagavatam story is saying that how one can fall down from Bhava stage. That is a lesson somebody might draw. But that is not how Acharyas see this pastime. It's not that Maharaj Bharat fell down from Bhava. In fact, by going in a deer's body, he was not in deer's consciousness first. His separation towards Krishna increased 1,000 times more. That is what Vishwanath Chakra Thakur mentions in his commentaries. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and in the 10th canto, 2nd chapter, I don't remember the verse, 30 and 31, I think. Ye Anya Arvindaksha. After this, the next verse. So those who are Jnanis, although they get liberated, but patanti other. Then what about devotees? Devotees, even if they fall down, they don't fall down. That next verse explains. And there the example is of Maharaj Bharat. So his separation for Krishna increased 1,000 times more in the deer's body. And when he came in Jad Bharat body, his separation again multiplied 10,000 times more. So that's why he was so firm and determined to go back to Godhead. So by Daiva, what Krishna can do to his devotees, we don't know. So what has come by Daiva, we should not speculate and commit aparadh. So that is the point. I hope it is clear, Mataji. Oh, many more questions. First, let me clarify this. Daiva is clear, I guess. Okay. Madan Mohan Prabhuji has a question. Yes, Prabhuji.
Very nice explanation of the situation between Kanishta and Uttam. Both are not able to discriminate for various reasons. One is capable, one is not capable. But the problem we face being Kanishta Adhikaris is that we find fault with other devotees. That's a fact that we brood over things. And like recently, I went to Jagannath Puri, and then I went to a temple, but they didn't serve me Ekadashi Prasad. So then I felt I'm being discriminated. So when I wanted to see the temple president, then the temple president blasphemed me. Various reasons. But then I have to think whether I have the line of authority to criticize the temple president. If I don't have, then I have to approach the line of authority who can then discipline him. If my mind broods over things, then I can approach a senior devotee and explain to him that this is what has happened. And maybe he can give me the vision to see, or he does whatever he does. So that's how I have vented my grievance. Otherwise, what happens is we say that we shouldn't find fault, we shouldn't do Vaishnava Parad, but we commit. The practical situation, ground realities are different. The ground reality is that unless I vent it out, my mind keeps jumping like a monkey. So I have to find fault. I mean, I have to say that we do really find fault because that is the
Now,
nature of the mind.
now
So the only way.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji,
Hmm.
you'll have to keep brief your question. Otherwise, it is like a whole explanation you're giving. You have to just briefly tell me what is your question. I understood
My
the
question is that how do we find a mentor to reveal my mind, to avoid Vaishnava Parad?
how do we find a mentor? Mentor, okay. How do you find a mentor to avoid Vaishnava Para? Now, basically, first thing is you have to understand that Kanishta, when we are growing in spiritual life, we usually start from the Kanishta stage. And the tendency to find faults is there a lot because the anarthas are very deep rooted. The anarthas are there a lot. And as we practice spiritual life and the anarthas subside or cessation happens, then this tendency to find fault slowly comes down, 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 down until we go to the highest levels. So the tendency to find faults or criticize is the business of the mind. In fact, it is the business of the mind. We don't have that level of tolerance also and humility to whatever situation we are put in. The false ego, comes in the rescue of the mind and gives various reasons to, vent it out. So, but the simple sutra is that when one is humiliated, when one is, put in trouble, one should tolerate. But other Vaishnavas are put in trouble or they are humiliated, we should act like fire. But what we do, when others are in trouble, we just watch and take pleasure. And when we are in trouble, we act like fire. So this is our conditioned nature. So it requires deep purification of the heart to develop that genuine humility of the soul and thereby we can that time chant the holy name. So it is all, whatever is happening, one thing, you have to see things from different levels. One is, yes, there is the immediate situation that something has gone wrong in my interaction in this given situation. This is the first immediate thing which has happened. There is second level, you have to see things that there must be some remote cause behind it. What is the remote cause? There might be some, I must have done something bad to someone and that's why I'm now getting a reaction, the karmic cause, to see like that. From that vision also we should see. And then there is the highest cause, which is called as the ultimate cause. That ultimately it is under the control of Krishna. So like that, we have to see the situation from all these three angles, evaluate the situation, and not to address your issue that we speak to the concerned authorities, but for the welfare of the higher institute or for the public, such incidents should not happen. In that mode, we have to address those issues, not to vent your personal, things which have gone wrong with you. That we need to tolerate. And of course, we need to process what we have gone through. And that's why we need some mentors whom we can discuss, who are experienced in spiritual life, and they can guide us properly. So that's how we need to do in situations. Okay. Surya Kund Prabhuji. Where are you? I'm not able to. Yeah. Okay. I've unmuted you.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dhanavad Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I would like to ask that when we give a lecture, by chanting the holy name Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, your heart get cleansed and your life will change. So we give some example that see this devotee, he was having bad habits. Now after chanting and he has changed his life, he has given all his bad habits. So this is a Vaishnava Prad by saying an example of other devotee.
Yes. Yeah, very good. You brought out this point. Very nice. I'm happy to hear.
Because
Bhakti Thakur says that we should not see faults in these three aspects, but you can speak about others in only three different conditions. Sad Uddesh, if you have a higher purpose. Now, what is the Sad Uddesh? If by speaking about somebody's fault, it will benefit him. If you're speaking about somebody's fault, it will benefit you. If you're speaking about others' fault, if it can benefit the whole world. If you have these three Sadhudesh, then you can speak about it. And there is no Vaishnava Aparadha. Like, let us take the example of Jagai and Madai. Now, Jagai and Madai, we speak about what kind of sins they were doing in their previous lives before coming to Krishna consciousness. But seeing that example, oh, I have also some hope. So nobody in Kali Yuga can say that I'm very sinful, because there are no sinful people most sinful like Jagai and Madai. So if Jagai and Madai can be delivered, anyone can be delivered. So that is a hope for us. So that's why the Jagai Madai pastime is discussed. The second is the Valmiki, the composer of Ramayana. We speak about his previous life as Ratnakar. He was a hunter. And Narad Muni preached in such a way that, because he was so sinful, the holy name would not come from his mouth out. So that's why he was told to chant Mara, 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 Mara. And he was taking du yakshar, Ra and Ma. And that Ra and Ma is so powerful that he became a pure devotee and he became a composer of the Ramayana. So that gives a ray of hope. Now, you can speak about others to them if we genuinely want to benefit him, we want to uplift him, if that Sadudesh is there, we can speak. Now, if we can speak about it, of the fault of others, if we want to learn lessons for ourselves, how we should not commit that fault, and further make advancement in Krishna consciousness. So in these conditions, we can speak. So this point I had in my mind to speak, but it is good that you brought out this question. So in these three reasons, we can find faults. Actually, Vaishnava Ninda is a very, very vast topic. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written an entire essay on it called as Vaishnava Ninda, Criticism of Vaishnavas. And you can read that book and you'll find out a lot in that. It's a very nice presentation. Okay, so we'll continue. So we saw this first gross bodily defect. Now, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, apichetsu duracharo bhajate mam ananyabhak sadhureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hi sa. Even if a devotee sometimes seems to engage in abominable activities, he should be considered a sadhu, a saintly person, because his actual identity is that of one engaged in the loving service of the Lord. In other words, he is not to be considered an ordinary human being. Now, Prabhupada is quoting this 9.30. In fact, 9.30 and 31 should be always discussed together. Now, here is quoting. Now, this is a by accident, api chet. The word is used as api chet, even if. That means a devotee normally, when he takes up to devotional service, he will practice a pure life and he will never want to commit sin. But api chet means by daiva, or because especially of his conditioned nature, he commits what? Sudurachara. Su and durachara. Durachara means abominable, and sudurachara means most abominable activity. Even if he commits the most abominable activity, but what is Krishna saying? Bhajate mam ananyabhak. He doesn't give up my devotion. Krishna says sadhu. Sadhu eva mantavya. He should be considered as a sadhu. And what we will do when we come to know that this devotee has committed this sinful activity? Oh, what kind of a Vaishnava is? He's a sinful person. From Krishna's vision, he is a sadhu. But from our vision, he is a sadhu. He is a sudurachara. So who commits an offense? Raise your hands. Who would like to answer? Who commits an offense? Who commits an offense? Raise your hands. Surikund Prabhuji, yes. Who commits an offense?
We ourselves.
Yes. So what is more dangerous, committing an offense or committing a sin?
Committing an offense.
Yes, committing an offense.
Yes.
So committing an offense, Vaishnava aparad affects the soul.
Yes.
The soul's progress is checked. Pap doesn't touch the soul. The pap is there in the conditioning, in the subtle body.
Yes.
And the pap is compared to dhuli lep. Dhuli means what? Mud.
Mud.
Lep. If you just put water, it will clean off.
Yeah.
But Vaishnava aparad is compared to vajra lep. Indra has a vajra.
Yes.
So it directly affects the soul. So when we see that, oh, this Vaishnava has committed an abominable activity, he's sinful, we find fault because of his conditioning nature. Somehow he has, accidentally come under his conditioning and he has committed. He would have otherwise not done. Because of his deep conditioned nature, he accidentally slips and commits something which he would have otherwise not done. And then we find fault. He's continuing his devotional service. Krishna is saying you should see him as a sadhu, but we see him as a sadhu. Samyak vyavastito hi saha. He is situated properly in his determination. Now, this is a very elaborate discussion, 30 and 31. It will take at least 1 hour to discuss this verse. So we'll not go more into this detail. But here only one point I would like to make, which Prabhupada is mentioning, that we have two natures, our conditioned nature, constitutional nature. Constitution belongs to the soul, that is devotional service. Our conditioned nature is our sabhava, because of the unlimited impressions which we have from millions of lives. Now, when we take up to devotional service, we will see that both go in a parallel track. But sometimes while we are balancing our conditioned nature and our constitutional nature, practicing our devotional life, and according to our nature, doing some engagement to maintain our family, suddenly because of the samskars, some vasanas, which are their impressions, bad impressions, sinful impressions, they might suddenly overwhelm us. And because of our previous habits or previous conditionings, we might commit some abominable activity. And if we do that, it is because of accident. But Krishna, he is in our heart. He can understand what our millions of lives, what we have done, and he can see our life in this entire life. So he has got a broad vision. So he understands what that soul is going through. We don't have that vision, and that's why we have to follow the vision of Krishna, sadhureva samantavya, samvyak vyavastito isa. So we have to see everything from the Shastra angle. Otherwise, we end up in committing offense. That person must be going through deep repentance. I'm such a sinful person. I'm not able to overcome my deep conditioning. He might be crying from inside, and he might take a vow. No matter if I go to hell, I don't mind, but I will continue to practice devotional service. This is his samvyak vyavastito hi saha. And he will shipram bhavati dharmatma. He will immediately be delivered by Krishna. But that devotee who sees fault in his conditioned nature and commits offense, he becomes a Vaishnava Aparadhi. This, in fact, in the entire Bhagavad Gita is the most confidential knowledge, 9.30. Anyone who understands 9.30, he will never commit Vaishnava Aparadh, and he will be able to take the holy name, pure holy name, and he can attain Krishna Prem. So this is a very elaborate discussion, but just to summarize. Once Prabhupada was giving lecture on 9.30, and Prabhupada said in that lecture that if Brahmanand happens to go to the store to buy something for the deities, and while coming, if you happen to see Brahmanand smoking a cigarette, still you should not see any fault with him, Prabhupada said. Yeah. Maybe Brahmanand, I don't know, Brahmanand must have previous coming to Krishna consciousness, he was addicted to smoking. So even if he is smoking, you should not see fault, Prabhupada is saying in that lecture. And then I was, sitting with a very senior sannyasi, His Holiness Jananand Goswami Maharaj, and he was hearing this lecture. So Jananand Maharaj is a very hilarious, Swami, very, very jolly Swami. So suddenly when he heard this statement of Prabhupada, please go and get me a cigarette, he was telling me. So we don't know, because of the conditioning, suddenly the, vasanas might get activated and we might commit something wrong because of our deep conditioned nature. But this is because of accident. And Prabhupada has written a very nice purport. We can study this purport. So, but I'm stopping here for the discussion about the Swabhav, conditioned nature. We should not see even faults with one's conditioned nature. So this is a very important point for us. Okay, there is one question. Sarthi Parth Vasudev Prabhuji. Okay. Okay. Yes, Prabhuji. I have unmuted you. Yes. Tell me.
Haribol, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes.
You said sadhu, no? Sadhus, any condition, we should see the person as a sadhu only.
Yes.
In Kanishta Adhikari, we cannot able to see him as a sadhu. When you come to the Madhyama Adhikari, we can discriminate whether he is a sadhu, whether he is a non-sadhu, we can able to discriminate. But when we go to Uttama Adhikari, we see each and everyone is a sadhu only. And they all are pious, all creatures are very in a creation of Krishna's, what we can see in the Uttama Adhikari, isn't it? It is this discrimination coming through our condition, nature of condition, or it is how to put up in these things?
Okay. See, most important, you have to understand that spiritual life is a matter of vision. It is the development of vision what happens. Now, as a Kanishta Adhikari, if we had studied from the Bhagavad perspective, his vision is very narrow. He sees I and the deity, and he doesn't see any relationship with anyone. So that is a very narrow vision. A broader vision is the Madhyama Adhikari, where he sees the devotee is there, the Lord is there, the innocent. That's why he shows compassion. And the envious, also he avoids them or neglects them. The Mahabhagavat vision is the biggest or the broadest vision, where he can see that everything, this whole manifestation is, this whole universe is what? It is what?
Creation.
Either idam hi vishwam bhagavan ivetaro. This whole universe is actually the manifestation of Bhagavan. So in this whole manifestation, he has that vision, in fact. So it is a matter of vision, and the development of vision happens with the practice of devotion. Now what vision we have is the gross vision of the eye, which we see. But whatever we see through the eyes is based on the samskars, what are there in the subtle body. So to give you an example, Chanakya Pandit gives this example like cow, for a materialistic person, who is going by the car, it is just an obstacle. For a Brahmana, it is an object of worship. And for a tiger, it's an object of flesh. Yes. So all the three are seeing the same object, but their vision is different.
Okay.
So our samskars, which are there in the heart, chitta, impressions, through that we see, not just with the physical eyes. We see not just with our eyes, we see with our mind's eyes. We see with our mind's eyes. So when the Cheto Darpan Marjanam happens, the impurities are all taken out from the chitta, then the soul's pure vision manifests. And in that soul's pure vision, then we can see actual spiritual reality. So that is a matter of development with spiritual life. Okay. Fine. Still not able to move ahead because of a lot of questions. So now let us go to the further discussion. Now, okay. So the next theme is in paragraph 4. Now, paragraph 4 is material consideration of caste or hereditary. Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, foreigner Goswami. So this is, sorry. So this is now paragraph 4. We'll take up paragraph 4 now. Even though a pure devotee may be born in a Brahman or Goswami family, not be born in a Brahman or Goswami family, if he is engaged in the service of the Lord, he should not be neglected. In actuality, there cannot be a Goswami family of Goswamis based on material consideration, caste or hereditary. Now, Goswami, we have seen the definition of Goswami is one who is able to control his senses. Not just because you have a surname Goswami, you don't automatically become a Goswami. So it's not just material consideration because somebody has a title as Trivedi, it doesn't mean that he has studied all the Vedas. So it is just not because you're born in a particular family that you become a Goswami. No, Goswami means definition according to NOI 1, text 1. So that's why Prabhupada says Goswami title is actually the monopoly of the pure devotees, those who have controlled their senses, the 6 Vedas. And that's why we speak about the 6 Goswamis. And Prabhupada goes on to say these 6 Goswamis, especially Rup and Sanatan, they had become Mohammedans and they had changed their name to Dabir Khas and Sakar Malik. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made them Goswamis. And therefore, Goswami title is not hereditary. And Prabhupada then goes on to explain that the Goswami refers to who can control his senses, who is the master of the senses. A devotee is not controlled by the senses, but is the control of the senses. Consequently, he should be called Swami or Goswami, even though he may be not born in a Goswami family. So this is the second consideration, that although somebody is not born in a Brahmana family or in a Goswami family, but still if he practices spiritual life, he is able to control his 6 urges. He is actually a Goswami. So the real Goswami is one, according to Rupa Goswami's text 1, and not from external considerations, caste, hereditary. And Prabhupada is going to come to that next point. According to this formula, the Goswamis who are descendants of Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Prabhu. So Nityananda Gosai and Advaita Gosai. So their descendants have this title Goswami. So Prabhupada is saying are certainly devotees, but devotees coming from other families should not be discriminated against. Indeed, whether a devotees come from the family of previous acharyas or from ordinary family, they should be treated equally. So there should be equal treatment. One should not think, oh, here is an American Goswami and discriminate against him. Nor one should think, here is a Nityananda Vamsha Goswami. So like that, if you try to treat on material considerations, no. Anyone, whether he is coming in the Goswami family, his criteria also is the same, that he should be able to control his senses. And if somebody is not coming from a Goswami family, if he has controlled his senses, he is also Goswami. So we should treat them equally. Then Prabhupada goes on to give the problem, what he was facing. There is an undercurrent of protest against our awarding the title Goswami to American Vaishnavas of the Hare Krishna movement. Sometimes people flatly tell the American devotees that their sannyas or the title of Goswami is not bona fide. However, according to the statements of Rupa Goswami in this verse, an American Goswami and a Goswami in the family of Acharyas are non-different. Especially in Vrindavan, when Prabhupada disciples were there, who were building the Krishna Balram Mandir, one of the devotees had gone to visit a temple, and the pujari told, oh, it's very good that you have taken up to Krishna Bhakti, you're very fortunate, but you're coming from a Mlecha background. So by practicing this spiritual life, next birth you'll take birth in India in a Brahmana family, then you'll become pure, and then you'll go back to the spiritual world, he said. So he was a little taken aback, and he went and met Prabhupada. So Prabhupada told him that you go and tell that pujari that if he practices spiritual life, he will be fortunate that next birth he will take in ISKCON. And then he'll become a devotee and then go back to Godhead. So like that, they think that, one has to be born only in a Brahmana family and then only he can take up to spiritual life. So all this doesn't have any solid siddhantic or philosophical background, or there's no philosophical foundation to all these kind of different concoctions which are there. After Mother Devahuti hears from Kapil Muni, what she says, Aho bata sapacho garyan yad vartate nama tubhyam. Even if a sapacha is greater, because why? He is taking your name. he must have done all austerities, all tapasyas, all yagyas in his all previous lives. So even a Swapacha also, Swapacha is the dog eater. A dog eater in his tongue, if he's vibrating the holy name, he is glorious. And he must have taken bath in all the holy places. He must have performed all yagyas. He must have chanted all mantra, yagyas, vidhis, all he must have done. So that is why there is a verse, I don't know where it is, the Padma Puran. If a Brahmana is not a Vaishnava, then he cannot become a Guru. But if he's a Swapacha also, if he's a Vaishnava, he can become a Guru. That is how glorious is the path of pure devotion. So that is what Prabhupada is clarifying in this paragraph. Then Prabhupada speaks in the next paragraph. The next theme is paragraph 5 we have taken, paragraph 6 now. Being envious of a devotee and misbehaving with him. Now this is one of the little dangerous things in the association of devotees which happens, which sometimes we are also not aware. So Prabhupada speaks, if we consider the bodily defects of a Vaishnava, we should understand that we are committing offense at the lotus feet of the Vaishnava. No, sorry, this paragraph. That's what I was wondering. This is paragraph 5 now, right? No, paragraph 6 now. Yeah, paragraph 6. On the other hand, a devotee who has attained the title of Goswami but is not born of a Brahmana father or of a Goswami in the family of Nityanand or Advait Prabhu should not be artificially puffed up by thinking that he has become a Goswami. So even by practicing spiritual life, if you are not coming from a Brahmana family or Goswami family, there are advantages if you're born in a Brahmana family and Goswami families. You can, that culture is there, training is there, so that immediately you can take up. Just like somebody is a doctor's son, he has all the facilities, to become a doctor. Similarly, if you're born in a Brahmana's house or a Goswami's family, you have the facility whereby you can practice spiritual life and also become an actual Goswami. But if somebody has attained the title Goswami and he is not born on either a Brahmana father or a Goswami family, he should also not become puffed up. Oh, I am a Swami or a sannyasi. Prabhupada made one statement in Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, one should be in the consciousness that I am an eternal servant of Krishna. I am neither a sannyasi, nor a grahastha, nor a vanaprastha, nor a brahmachari. So this kind of consciousness one should have. He should always remember that as soon as he becomes materially puffed up, he immediately falls down. So pride comes before a fall, they say, no? And usually these 6 enemies, 6 ripu, shad ripu, what is called kama, krodha, lobha, mada, not mada, kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, and matsarya. So kama is what? Desire. And how you come to know that kama, when it is not fulfilled, there is krodha. The manifestation of krodha shows that there is some desire which has been obstructed, and that's why somebody is angry. Why we become angry sometimes we don't know. Sometimes the boss fires at us in the office and the husband comes home and starts shouting at the wife or the children. Now he's venting that anger. He cannot vent it to the boss. Now he comes and vents it out. So like that, anger shows the presence of kama. Similarly, lobha, greed is subtle, very subtle. It is concentrated form of kama only, subtle. And because of greed, you are in such illusion that you can sometimes cheat your own family members to usurp their property or to kill them also. In order to, because of lobha, too much intense greed to acquire wealth. And matsarya is the subtlest form of kama. And how it manifests? When there is pride. The moment you detect pride in someone, that pride is born out envy. It is born out of envy. So that's why pride comes before a fall, it is said. This Krishna conscious movement is a transcendental science, and there is no room for jealousy. Prabhupada in one lecture was explaining, how do you know that you are pure? It's a simple test, he said. If you are not jealous, then you are pure. How do you know whether you're satisfied? When you're hungry, you have been fed, tushti pushti, shuddhapaya gasam. Every morsel of food you take, you feel tushti, happiness, satisfaction. Pushti means strength, and the hunger is mitigated. If you have practiced bhakti, then there is no need for you to go outside and check. You can see within yourself whether you're still feeling jealousy about some things. And if jealousy is there, then still you're not pure. This movement is meant for Paramahamsas who are completely free from all jealousy. Paramo nirmatsaranam. One should not be jealous whether he is born in the family of Goswamis or has the title Goswami awarded to him. As soon as anyone becomes envious, he falls from the platform of Paramahamsa. As soon as anyone becomes envious, he falls from the platform of Paramahamsa. Very heavy statement of Prabhupada. So we should be very, very careful about this envy, deep-rooted envy. Especially in spiritual life, this is one anartha which troubles all devotees. Envy, jealousy. I don't like this devotee. I'm jealous because I came before him and now he is so much advanced that he's giving lectures. Why is he more advanced than me? So these kind of thoughts and feelings which come, these are all signs of jealousy. So Prabhupada, Paramo Nirmatsaranam, when he's translating 1:1:2, he's mentioning Nirmatsaranam means what? Of the 100% pure in heart. So we should be completely 100% pure in the heart. There is no matsarya. So this is the standard. So that happens only with chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra slowly. And purification means actually the internal purification of these anarthas. And this is the difficult phase in the spiritual life, anartha nivritti. So as long as anartha nivritti doesn't happen and we don't get purified, we have this tendencies and we should be very careful and watch this. And immediately when it manifests, immediately you have to work on it, pray to the deities, reveal your heart to their mentors. And what we should do is, we should try to not find fault or become jealous of others, but we should try to train our own mind and see the contaminations within our mind and start working on it. That is not so easy. To find faults with others, then the mind takes a lot of pleasure. There is a lot of subtle pleasure we get in it. But when we have to find faults with ourselves, it's very painful, and we don't want to do that. But this is what we need to do for us to get purified. So this is a very important anartha which troubles us, envy, jealousy, and Prabhupada has spoken about it in this paragraph. Now, in the next theme, Prabhupada explains about being envious of a devotee and misbehaving with them. We have discussed effects of Vaishnava Aparadha. He speaks in paragraph 7. If we consider the bodily effects of a Vaishnava, we should understand we are committing an offense at the lotus feet of the Vaishnava. An offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava is very serious. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has described this offense as Hati Mata, a mad elephant offense. Why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is comparing this to a mad elephant? Because a mad elephant can create disaster, especially when it enters into a nicely trimmed garden. Now, many years back, it had come in the newspaper that in Udupi Sri Krishna temple, there was a big festival going on. And at the entrance, there was the elephant which was welcoming all the devotees to the temple. And suddenly this elephant went mad and went berserk. It started trampling on people, trampling the cars. All the cars were crushed in that road. It was running here and there. The police had to be called, and at last they had to shoot this elephant. Such a chaos and disaster it created in that entire street, which is called as the car street, because car is actually the rath where the Utsav Murtis or the festivals where Udupi Krishna temple there. So when a mad elephant becomes mad, it creates basak. Similarly, Vaishnava Aparadh is something like that. And here the example is given of a trimmed garden. And our Bhakti Lata is compared to that Lata which is growing in the garden. You know? So by Shravan Kirtan Jal, slowly the Bhakti Lata is growing. And if we commit Vaishnava Aparadh, it is like allowing the elephant to come inside our garden of heart. It will uproot the creeper right from the root and destroy it and throw it away. And you'll be out of devotion. That is how dangerous is Vaishnava Aparadha. And that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu compares it to a Hathi Mata. One should be very careful not to commit any offense against a Vaishnava, especially pure devotees. Now, to degree that Vaishnava is at that level, according to that degree, the effect will be on us. If we have committed an aparadha to a Kanishta Vaishnava, it will have certain degree effect. If we have committed to a Madhyama, the degree of intensity of the effect will be more. And if you have committed an aparadha to a Mahabhagavat, it can have very disastrous consequences. Every devotee should be ready to take instructions from a superior, and a superior Vaishnava must be ready to help an inferior Vaishnava in order. One is superior or inferior according to his spiritual development in Krishna consciousness. One is forbidden to observe the activities of the pure Vaishnava from a material point of view. Now, this is a very, very important point. Especially if you are regularly with a pure devotee, a Vaishnava, sannyasi, and regularly you have been serving him, you are observing his activities, the material mind of a conditioned soul can come with so much explanations. No, my spiritual master also answers nature call. I also answer nature call. No, we are both. No, so there is no difference. We are quite similar. We might see like that. So like that, from a materialistic perspective, we might see even the pure devotees. So that's why it is forbidden, especially for us to observe the activities. So what we should observe is how that pure devotee is engaged in Krishna consciousness. Now, as I was explaining, there are two visions, the gross vision and the subtle mental vision. But our spiritual vision is not yet developed now. So we should train our mind to develop this spiritual vision by having knowledge. We have a tendency to see either by gross vision, gross defects, or subtle vision, see faults with the nature. But we should train our mind to see with spiritual vision, to see how he is engaged in spiritual service. Once there was one brahmachari in the Gaudiya Mutt during Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's time, and all the devotees used to go and complain about him to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. See, he's like that, he fights, he does this, he does that. So many complaints. So once Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati called one of his senior devotees and he asked him, what all complaints you have about him, please speak. So he had a huge list. And then after hearing everything, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur asked him, does he have any good quality? Then he thought for a long time and he said, he plays very nice mridanga. So he has that good quality, just focus on that. He's engaged in Krishna service. So that's how Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, somehow they see, the pure devotees see that spiritual quality, that somehow they are engaged. That soul is engaged in spiritual service. So they have that spiritual vision. So we don't have that spiritual vision, and that's why we should, at least through knowledge, have that spiritual vision to see that they are engaged in Krishna service. Sanatana Goswami's very famous statement is there. He says that because every Vaishnava is engaged in Krishna's service, I don't see any faults in them. It's a very exalted vision. That is Sanatana Goswami's vision. That somehow every Jiva, every Vaishnava is engaged in Krishna service, so I don't see any fault with them. So that's why I never saw faults with the Vaishnava. That is also one of the qualities of a pure devotee, that he's a dosha darshi. A dosha darshi. Darshi means vision, dosha means fault. A dosha means he doesn't see any faults because his vision itself is very, very pure. For a neophyte, especially, considering a devotee from a material point of view is very dangerous. One should therefore avoid observing a pure devotee externally, but should try to see the internal features and understand how he is engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. In this way, one can avoid seeing a pure devotee from the material point of view and thus can actually become a purified devotee himself. So this I summarized when I spoke about it. Now, in the next paragraph, Prabhupada speaks about now criticizing an empowered Vaishnava and consider an empowered Vaishnava an object of disciplinary action or to give advice or correct him. So this he has spoken here. Those who think that Krishna consciousness is limited to a certain section of people, a certain section of devotees, or a certain tract of land are generally prone to see the external features of the devotee. Such neophytes, unable to appreciate the exalted service of an advanced devotee, try to bring the Mahabhagavad to their platform. We experience, Prabhupada is saying here, such difficulty in propagating this Krishna consciousness all over the world. Unfortunately, we are surrounded by neophyte God brothers who do not appreciate the extraordinary activities of spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. So Prabhupada, some of his God brothers took a lot of objection, and there were a lot of internal, loving quarrels, you can say, between his God brothers, especially in India. Prabhupada had to deal. And Prabhupada is saying that they are not able to appreciate his contribution. Spreading Krishna consciousness just in a matter of 11 years all over the world. Never ever in the history of this universe, at least we have heard, not even Muhammad or Jesus has done these kind of activities what Prabhupada has done. Spreading Krishna consciousness in all the countries of the world. So we don't know the impact what Prabhupada has done in the next few years, in the next coming 100, 200 years, how it is going to unfold. We have absolutely no idea. 2005 years, 2000, 3000 years back, Jesus was preaching, but because of his preaching, he was crucified. But imagine Prabhupada was preaching now, this times, to what kind of people, and he was able to transform their heart. So, a Mahabhagavat is an empowered devotee, and he's carrying the Shakti. Krishna Shakti, Vina Nahi Pravartan. Without the potency of Krishna, you cannot do that transformation. They try to simply bring us to their platform and try to criticize us in every respect. We very much regret their naive activities and poor fund of knowledge. An empowered person who is actually engaged in the confidential service of the Lord should not be treated as an ordinary human being. For it is stated that unless one is empowered by Krishna, one cannot spread Krishna conscious movement all over the world. Krishna Shakti Vina Nahi Pravartan. Now in the last paragraph, Prabhupada explains that one should not correct or try to give advice. When one thus criticizes a pure devotee, he commits a Vaishnava Aparadha that is very obstructive and dangerous for those who desire to advance in Krishna consciousness. A person cannot derive any spiritual benefit when he offends the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. Everyone should be therefore very careful not to be jealous of an empowered Vaishnava or a Shuddha Vaishnava. It is also an offense to consider an empowered Vaishnava an object of disciplinary action. It is offensive to try to give him advice or to correct him. One can distinguish between a neophyte and advanced Vaishnava by their activities. An advanced Vaishnava is always situated as a spiritual master, and the neophyte is always considered his disciple. The spiritual master is not subjected to the advice of a disciple, nor should a spiritual master be obliged to take instruction from those who are not his disciples. This is the sum and substance of Rupa Goswami's advice in the 6th verse. Now here is a very important point. It is offense to consider an empowered Vaishnava an object of disciplinary action. It is offensive to try to give him advice or to correct him. So in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, this is the last point, I'll end up here. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught 4 important principles through 4 of his devotees. Through Ramanand Rai, he taught how to conquer lust. Through Haridas Thakur, he taught how to be tolerant. He was beaten in 22 marketplaces, and he was tolerating that, and he was praying for those who were beating him for their deliverance. Third, through Sanatan Goswami, he taught humility. And fourth, through whom? Anyone knows? What is the 4th thing he taught? Anyone knows about it? Can raise their hands. Does anyone has any idea? No. Anyone else? Through Damodar Pandit, he taught how one should not criticize or correct or give advice. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, these pastimes are there. I don't recollect now. It is maybe Antya-lila chapter 3 or chapter 4. There is to be one boy who used to look like Krishna, very young boy, and he was attracted to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he used to freely walk into his room, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to see him as Krishna, and he used to nicely talk with him, and both used to spend nice time. And Damodar Pandit was not at all happy, and used to every time stop this boy from going to Mahaprabhu's house. But this boy used to not listen. He used to straight away go into the room of Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu one day told that, why are you associating with this boy? Do you know that this boy's mother is a widow? People will criticize you. So he started, criticizing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Actually, Damodar Pandit, criticism of Mahaprabhu loved it. But there is a deep lesson there in that whole pastime. Mahaprabhu and Damodar Pandit are both eternal associates. Mahaprabhu is the Lord himself, and Damodar Pandit is the eternal servant. But this act of criticizing and correcting, although it was right, it was for the benefit of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because people might find fault. But still, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had nice loving interaction with Damodar Pandit. But still later on, what did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu do? He sent Damodar Pandit to Navadvip. And when he came to Navadvip, everyone knew the nature of Damodar Pandit. That he's very strict, and if you do something wrong, he will immediately correct you. So they were very scared. So the lesson there is that ultimately he left the association of Mahaprabhu and he had to go to Navadvip. So the lesson for us is that in the association of devotees, if we criticize Vaishnavas, we will slowly leave that association of Vaishnavas and will be bereft of the association of Vaishnavas. Ramchandra Puri and Ishwar Puri were both disciples of Madhavendra Puri. But Ramchandra Puri, found fault with the spiritual master when he was just about to leave the body. He was feeling separation from Krishna and he was crying. Oh, why are you crying? Be in Brahma Bhuta Avastha stage. No, na sochati na kamshati. What is this lamentation? So he could not understand the internal mood of Madhavendra Puri. and he committed a great offense. Madhavpur said, get out of my sight. If I see you, I will get a adagati. And Ramchandra Puri then came to Jagannath Puri and he started finding faults with Vaishnavas. He used to first feed the Vaishnavas lot of prasad, and because Ramchandra Puri is a sannyasi, they used to have, and later on he used to criticize, see, these Vaishnavas, they overeat. And not only in Vaishnavas, he found fault with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One day, he came to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he saw that there were ants. And he said, yes, this sannyasi is eating sweets. This is what he interpreted. It can be that reason, but it was not that reason. But Mahaprabhu took it seriously. He stopped, whatever prasad he was having, he reduced it to half. Ultimately what? Ramchandra Puri, did not give up sannyas order. He did not, get married. He did not run away with any other woman. He still maintained his sannyas order, but he fell down. Because later on, he went away from the association devotees and he was no more in Jagannath Puri. So, offensive to give advice or correct, especially the spiritual master. So, that is the last point. And there are a lot of lessons there from the Chaitanya Charitamrita water. Many pastimes are there. So, now we end text 6. Text 7 will require only one class. Text 8 will require 2 classes. And text 9, 10, 11 will require 3 classes. So still 5 classes. So next week we will get 2 classes. And in the first week of August, we will finish our discussion on NOI. Okay, so I'll stop here. Shri Upadesh Amrit ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Rupa Goswami Pad ki jai. Hare Krishna.